Arith, I thought yesterday's video was going to be a good one, and it was alright, but I think this is going to be a bad one. This is an excellent issue. I had never read it before, but I am struggling to find a focus for this video. It'll probably have to be Franklin Fantastical, who we see on the cover here being child catched by wingless man. I got this issue because I didn't know if the Frightening Force were in this one. They're not. But I wanted to know because it crossed my mind a year ago, maybe just under a year ago, when I reviewed one of my favourite team-up stories which featured that villain group. And I talked about them and their history heavily across both parts. And I may have even mentioned this issue and not knowing if they appeared alongside Wingless Man. It is an issue that focuses on Franklin Fantastical. I can already hear some groans. Well, this has, like, an all-star creative team. Plot by Royce Sturdham. Script is by Tom Falcon. Pencils by Sal Buscema, brother of John Buscema. And the inks are by John Buscema, brother of Sal Buscema. And they have got a great issue here that, even when focusing on Franklin Fantastical and his nonsense powers, it is the best version of that type of issue possible. At the minute, he has a form of omniscience and aspects of omnipresence, which manifest through his dreaming. And I suppose I need to explain Franklin Fantastical once and for all. Rewind to the silly age with Fantastic Force Annual 6, which is also the first appearance of the villain Annie All. And A. Pilgrim, if you are looking for a thematic link between this week's videos, the last two have been directly related to cutaways I used in the Andy Book one. In that annual, Invisible Wife gave birth to a son with Mr. Fantastical, darling little Enoch, but they call him Franklin Fantastical for short. It turns out darling little Franklin is one of the most powerful things ever, and that is most the stories involving him. That his latent muty powers are too much for a baby or a child. Like Steve Rogers having actual superpowers, Franklin Fantastical's powers is something I have never really enjoyed. It often ends with his dad performing a pseudo-lobotomy on his own son for the greater good. Franklin Fantastical's powers can be all over the place too. To say that they remain in any form consistent across different writers would be a lie. What we have now is powers in conjunction with him dreaming or him sleeping. There are two elements, both of which we will see. Well, these powers they originate from Powder Puff Patch, where he was featured as a secondary character. You and I were probably introduced to them in the essential Invisible Wife bondage story. One issue opens with Franklin Fantastical having a dream. Weirdly, not about his mum in leathers. By the way, Darth Knight the subscriber, he loves this splash image. The best thing Jason Byrne has ever drawn. He said that to me privately. He thinks that face drawn on a child is so lifelike and brilliant that it should be framed in galleries next to the girl with the pearl earring. The two parts of Franklin's dream powers are that he can dream of things that are happening or going to happen, and that he can project himself into those scenes. Here we have, as he sleeps, 3 out of 4 of Fantastic Force raiding a secret lab, which Franklin is seeing them do in his dreams. And he is also projecting an astral form of himself into the same lab. This is Thinker's lab, and they are attacked by some of his robots. The robots resembling his robot from the Silly Age, in particular, the one that became Scavenger. There's another link to Fantastic Force Annual 6 too. These are definitely lesser units, and we get some okay bits with the team trouncing them. But let's explain the plot. I have held it back for now, but this is fallout from the previous issue, issue 300. 3 of the team's villains joined up to try and ruin everyone's day. We had Thinker and Wingless Man, and then Muppet Master, who is not in this issue. He was dealt with and resolved in 300. We're left with only Thinker and Wingless Man, but I always saw the 3 of them as being a sly reference to the Terrible Trio. The Terrible Trio were a one-off group of villains, again, from the Silly Age. It was Eggman, Thinker, and Muppet Master. I bloody love this bit though. Wingless Man has discovered Franklin Fantastical's powers and proposes that the 2 of them use him to strike at their most hated enemies, Fantastic Force. But Thinker pragmatically points out that he has no desire to hurt or kill a child, whereas Wingless Man does not give a hoot about that, and thus ends their partnership on the ethics of random child killing. Throughout, Thinker was only present through a robot. He is actually in prison, as the previous page showed. This is great writing though, giving the 2 villains different standards. Let's cut away to Honeymoon Island. You might have noticed Human Fire was absent from the issue so far, and you may have also found it odd that I haven't shown anything from Fantastic Force issue 300 yet. Last issue was the controversial wedding of Human Fire and Kerry Washington. It was that wedding that the new Terrible Trio wanted to crash. Throughout this all, Franklin Fantastical has been feeling a tremendous amount of guilt and blame for what his powers can or could cause for his family. Nobody but, I think, Powder Puff Patch actually know about the current powers. And we have a nice art-to-art with Thing here. And then a horrible scene with Mr. Fantastical appearing to be prepared to do another experiment on his son. But then we have something really sweet. Franklin Fantastical wants to visit his friend Alfred, the Avengers' butler Alfred. He wants to go and see his friend Alfred because Alfred doesn't hate anybody. When Fantastic Force were operating out of Avengers House after their own headquarters were destroyed, Alfred was often left to watch over Franklin Fantastical, and I love the idea that Franklin thinks of Alfred as his friend. It's lovely. Of course, Alfred is in hospital currently after he took a beating from the Bastards of Evil. So there's some more continuity for you. So, Thing takes Franklin Fantastical to the hospital to visit Alfred, which is where we get our covers scene. Wingless Man is the taxi driver, and he gasses the pair. Now we have him with the two as captive test subjects. And somewhat, I am surprised this issue didn't do. This was a perfect moment and story for giving up on the Mr. Fantastical experimenting on Franklin angle. Because here we have Wingless Man nefariously doing similar shit to try and exploit the same powers that Mr. Fantastical wants to get rid of. They don't draw any comparison between Mr. Fantastical and Wingless Man and their treatment of Franklin Fantastical. Like at the end, just have Mr. Fantastical go, I realise now that what I am doing to my son is as unfeeling and heartless towards him as what Wingless Man wished to do. Wingless Man also has continuity at hand to make Thing his slave. Remember the id machine? Maybe you read it as ID machine instead, but it was a contraption Wingless Man used back in the day to make Thing obedient and make Thing fight the rest of Fantastic Force. I am going to get up on a soapbox here. You might have clocked it yourself. There is so much fucking needlessly useless references to specific stories from the Silly Age in this. The volume of them is crazy. And then you don't even have a reference to something as contemporary or important to the central idea as Franklin Fantastical's appearances in Powder Puff Patch. Powder Puff Patch are not mentioned once. This is a good example, an early example of the attitude that brought Marvel down. The constant urge to look back, and then the selective continuity based on that nostalgia. Franklin, he reveals his powers to his parents by making one of his dream apparition selves appear to them and tell them about how he and Thing have been captured by Wingless Man. I love how Franklin Fantastical, even though he is still a kid, he is smart enough to do the right thing, and he has a completed arc in this issue. he has a lot of reservations and fears about revealing his powers to people, and he realises that he has to. Then we learn that the id machine didn't work because Thing is now a different person who has grown, and all his anger and all his rage, it has subsided, so it cannot be twisted that way. Really? It was only 2 issues ago that he was trying to fight everyone because he didn't like that Kerry Washington was getting married to someone else. We have a great sequence with Invisible Wife fighting Wingless Man. The only thing missing is the Dominatrix outfit. And then we have a really awesome conclusion with lessons learned and a happy family. This would have been a nice way to end the Franklin Fantastical Powers drama, but we won't be that lucky. And we didn't get to see Franklin Fantastical have a chat with Alfred. I really liked the issue. It was a slow starter, but we've got some creators hitting stealth home runs. If you can do an issue about the powers of Franklin Fantastical and have it not be shit, you're doing something right. 7 thumbs up.